Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to another podcast. This is episode 47. I am solo today, and I am completely alone for a specific reason that I will get into in a bit throughout, as we discuss more things. But I know why you guys are all here. It's for anime. So let's get straight to it. Just give me 1 second to let the people know that we are live, and we'll get started here. 1 second here, folks. Hope y'all are doing well, by the way. Let me know of any questions you may have. Give me 5 seconds. All right, folks, let us begin. So, got a couple things I want to discuss here. As you all know, we recently did a review to chapter 66 of Boruto. And it was a very good chapter. I definitely want to discuss it. And really, or both of them bloodlusted. I don't know what you mean there. Love the glasses. I appreciate it, Sage. But discussing chapter 66, it definitely opened my eyes to a lot of possibilities that could take place in the future of the Boruto timeline. So the first thing that really caught my eye was Amado, right? It was basically heavily implied or straight out stated by the writer that he's helping Boruto and Kawaki gain control and mastery over their karmas. That's very, very eye-opening. The question is, what is his real motive, right? Because on the surface, it looks like, oh, he's trying to atone for his sins, for what he's done, right? However, there could be an ulterior motive. The thing with Amado, in my opinion, is there's definitely always this sense of mystery and suspicion revolving around him. I think he's that kind of character, and I think it was done on purpose, right? He was the master of deception, able to deceive, the powerhouse of all powerhouses in Ishiki. Ishiki was tricked. He was tricked by Amado. He thought that he was his loyal servant, when in reality he was working against him the entire time, right? So it's kind of tough to kind of put finger on what Amado is truly thinking. What is he truly planning? Maybe he is a good guy now. I just don't think it's that simple. I think there's more to it. I think the writers are beautifully kind of masking that true ulterior motive. So we're going to find out what that is. However, he did give Kawaki powers. As far as that, he was very impressive against Boroshiki. Very impressive. He did very well against Boroshiki. He used Ishiki's abilities, so it's clear the karma has to do with Ishiki, right? From my understanding, at least from what we know currently, it was like synthetically reawakened by Amado. That's what it seems like. Right? I think the essence, the presence of Ishiki is gone. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe deep down, Ishiki's still in there somewhere, which would be crazy. I just think he's probably gone. That's my prediction. There's no way to truly confirm or deny, but Kawaki was very impressive. He was able to use the rods. He was able to use all the abilities where he uses his ability to expand objects and use the chakra suppressing rods and all that. And Boroshiki was very impressive as well. They were going at it. It was a very good moment. And as far as Naruto, right, so we got a little taste of what Naruto can do, kind of when he saved Boroshiki from being crushed by Kawaki's giant cube, right? So that kind of gives a little power scaling on his speed. He's at least fast enough to do that in Sage mode. That's commendable enough to give him some credit. Kawaki's philosophy is definitely quickly shifting. It seems like Boruto and Kawaki already had plans in motion to deal with the karmas. It seems like Boruto believes within himself that he's at a point of no return, right? He's basically saying we got to go to Plan B, which is basically to kill Boruto. It's very, very, very interesting. So him and Kawaki seem to have that understanding early on. Boruto and Naruto is not going to accept it. Naruto has a differing and basically polar opposite kind of philosophy. He's not for killing. He's never for it. He's completely against that. So we were left with Boruto seemingly being killed. As we all know, he's not killed. There's a time skip, so obviously he's going to be fine. But To the eyes of the characters, especially Naruto specifically, it's impending doom. So the question is, what will Naruto do next? What will he do next? Is he going to lose himself? The question is, how is he going to lose himself this time with Kurama out of the equation? He's not going to rage the way we used to see. It's going to be different. It's going to be just himself, right? With his sage mode. We're going to see how that goes, how powerful he is. That's all going to be answered, I believe, in the next chapter. I can't wait for it. But the trajectory of the Boruto timeline is definitely being implied now, right? So Kawaki is going to be ostracized, one way or the other. Whether he's captured by Naruto or whether he runs off, similar to how Sasuke did in his early days, he's going to be ostracized. He's going to be ostracized from the village. He's going to be hated by the village, by everyone, right? They're going to hate his guts. He's going to be an enemy to the Leaf Village. That's something that a lot of people are not going to forgive him for. He definitely has a similar path to maybe Sasuke. He just becomes this kind of evil person. And question is, how is Naruto going to deal with that? I guarantee they're going to have him reminisce about the past and somehow, some way about how he approached things with Sasuke. And the question is, will he go that same route with his son involved, right? His son is seemingly dead before his very eyes. So that's going to be very interesting to see how the writers explore that. There's a lot of things they could do, but this is a formula for a very dark path for Kawaki. A very dark path, an ostracized path, a lonely path. His philosophy is going to be even more hardened now. There's no going back now. There's no going back. He's at a point of no return when it comes to that. But as far as that, it's very interesting. To be honest, I don't think speed will be a problem. Okay, that's kind of about something else. But yeah, guys, I'm very, very, very excited for the future of what the Boruto timeline has to present. But that's the first topic. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Next up, I wanted to address this because I see this a lot. So faulty power scaling. Let me drink my beverage to get ready for this. So let me explain what I mean by faulty power scaling. So I noticed that some individuals like to revere certain statements and or feats that go against the clearly established power hierarchies established in fighting-themed anime, such as Naruto, right? But when power scaling, it is important to digest all relevant factors when establishing a premise, right? You can't just go based off a single feat, single statement. You got to go based off everything you know. You got to extrapolate all that and come to the most reasonable and valid conclusion, right? Which makes sense. So basically, one feat that goes against the grain of an obvious narrative power scaling hierarchy is not enough to accurately power scale someone yet. Some people really like to revere feats and say, well, there's nothing that shows otherwise, right? People always like to say there's nothing that shows otherwise when they're revering an inconsistent feat, yet the very narrative being told shows otherwise, right? So take, for example, the most common one, Kakazu versus Pain, right? The very narrative implies who's superior. The very narrative itself. Pain is his superior. He's taking orders from Pain. Why is that? Pretty obvious. So yeah, basically that's what I'm trying to say. Where was I? This results in certain inevitable inconsistencies. Oh wait, I lost myself. So at the end of the day, authors want to give a good plot, and can't be overly pedantic on power scaling if they want to make a good storyline entertaining, right? So authors got to make a good storyline. They can't just try to be overly pedantic in their power scaling assessment, which is a reason why Toriyama stopped, honestly, with power scaling. He stopped with the power levels. He's like, fuck it, I want to tell a good story, which leaves us to interpret how powerful somebody is, right? I think they want to, at the end of the day, want to give an entertaining storyline. That's what's important. So keep that in mind. So this results in certain inevitable inconsistencies when it comes to power scaling, which certain people love to revere, right? They love to revere it. There's going to be inconsistencies that go against the very narratively established power scaling, right? It's going to go against the grain. It's just inevitable. We see it everywhere. People like to pick it. They like to nitpick these inconsistent feats to kind of establish a faulty power scaling assessment. It's a big problem in the anime world, especially if you're a debater, especially if you like to debate certain perspectives, right? It's a big problem. People actually follow it. They follow it and they agree with it, which is very, very unfortunate. It's not logical, honestly. It's not logical at all. So continuing on. Another counter people like to use is that they say we don't know what the author is really trying to say. But dude, think about it. What's the point of telling a story, right? So, where was I? That's fallacious because an author's job, their very job, is to tell a story, with them literally letting us inside their very mind itself to tell this story. That's what stories are. People painting a canvas of what's in their mind to let us know what they're thinking. That's what the fuck they're doing. Right? Obviously, when it comes to spoilers and narrative events, they're not going to let us know right off the bat. They want to make it suspenseful and entertaining. But when you say, we don't really know what's going on, so you don't know that the Akatsuki have a clear hierarchy with pain at the top, you don't know that? I mean, it's pretty fucking clear. They're literally taking orders from the guys, literally giving orders out. But you don't know? It seems very disingenuous to me, if you ask me. Very disingenuous. So that's a very fallacious argument because an author's job, their very job, is to let us inside their mind as well as possible, right? The best at it are the most successful authors. Kishimoto, Toriyama, fucking George Orwell, which is the guy that wrote 1984. That's their very job, is to let us in their minds. It's very fallacious to say we don't know what's really in their mind when that's their fucking job. It's the point of writing a book. So, for you guys wondering, what's the best way to combat this, right? Because a lot of people won't give you a win unless you prove evidence, which I think is not the best way in a world where there's inconsistencies inevitably. So, this is what I say. The best way to combat this faulty power scaling is with rhetoric and logic. You need rhetoric. You need rhetoric and you need logic to kind of dismantle the revering of that very feat. That's what you need to do. It's the best way. Because sometimes people are going to say, well, there's nothing to prove otherwise, right? Some bullshit revered feat that goes against the very grain of the narrative storyline. And if that's not enough, you got to use rhetoric, man. You got to use logic. And that's on us to improve, right? We got to improve with our rhetoric, with our very logical thought processes. We have to improve in that aspect to combat this faulty power scaling. Because a lot of people love to revere feats. And feats are great when they're held by the narrative, when they're consistent, when it's not just some weird, inconsistent feat, right? Feats are great. I'm not saying not to use them, but it's a huge problem. A huge problem. It's very unfortunate. And a lot of people will give the person the benefit of the doubt. It's very unfortunate. I think rhetoric should be a factor when debating. But yeah, so that's my little tangent on that. Now, to answer your guys' questions. A lot of people are talking about Raditz versus the Akatsuki. So let me give my take on this. To me, it goes like this. If we have the presupposition that Raditz is planet level plus, then this would be a battle that would come down to intelligence. So think about it like this. If we're talking about Raditz in character, we all know that he's very arrogant. So he would use his scouter and determine that all members of the Akatsuki have low power levels, especially when considering Roshi, who destroyed the moon, only had a power level of approximately 130. And I think we can all agree that none of the Akatsuki members, at least in their normal forms, are planet level plus. So he's going to look at them and laugh because they're all very low when it comes to power scaling. However, this will be to his detriment because they have hacks. They have Sasori's poison, Itachi's genjutsu, Obito Kamui. That's going to be a problem for him. The hacks negate the gap, the massive gap in power. And he's not going to take that into account. Let's be honest. He's very arrogant. He's a Saiyan warrior. Saiyan warriors have pride. That's what they're known for. So that's going to be to his detriment and most likely result in him being killed by one of these hacks abilities. You can choose which one, right? Especially consider the fact how intelligent some of these Akatsuki members are. They're going to smell that arrogance and use it to their advantage. They're going to strategize around it. They're going to use that aspect to their advantage. That's what's going to happen if we're talking about in character on a balance of probabilities. But of course, if Raditz is somehow having a short fuse that day, if he's just pissed off, he doesn't give a fuck, he just wants to eliminate, he could simply just fly out of the earth and fucking destroy the earth. And that's it. That's all he has to do. He'll basically kill them all. That's simple because he's planet level plus, which I think can be safely said. So it really comes down to intelligence, to character, to personality, right? Which is very interesting. It's not as simple as saying he's planet level plus, so he definitely wins. It's not that simple. It's not that simple. You got to take into account their demeanor, their temperaments. Yeah, it really comes down to that. He's truly not prepared for his actual Sogen. Exactly. He would not be prepared. Absolutely not. They would definitely use that to their advantage. Most definitely. That's a most definite. But I agree. If he's bloodlusted, it's over. Raditz will simply go fly out of the earth, destroy the earth. That's all he has to do. Literally want to just atomize the earth. That's all he has to do, really. It's really that simple. But a few other ones that I'll discuss briefly before I get into the main topic of today. Asuma and Kurenai versus Hidan. This was a good one, I suppose. So, eyeballing this, I didn't really analyze it too long, but I would say it's safe to say that Asuma is relative but inferior to Hidan based off their battle, right? Which is contentious, but it's safe to say they're relative. With Kurenai really having little or no feats at all, and essentially me refusing to believe that she would help more than Shikamaru and the Jonin that were there helped when Asuma fought Hidan. I honestly think she wouldn't be as helpful. Her genjutsu, I guess, if she can catch him in it, would help. But I think it would come down to battle strategy, right? So if they're aware of Hidan's weakness, which the only weakness he really has is to disable or decapitate him, then maybe they can get it done, right? If they could get in a very advantageous position and maybe catch him in a genjutsu long enough for Asuma to decapitate him, maybe they'll win that way. But it's going to be very competitive because if he cuts one of them, it's fucking over, obviously, as we know. And his speed is most definitely relative and or superior to Asuma's, and it's highly probable that it's superior to Kurenai. There's nothing to imply that she's fast or anything. So she seems like the most inferior out of the three Jonin when talking about Kakashi, Asuma, and Kurenai. She seems like the least capable. I mean, that's headcanon, but based off what we do know, that's all I can really conclude. So I would say they have a good chance at winning if they have the right strategy. If they come in blindly, that's going to be a huge problem. One cut, it's over. Right? So prep time would be very, very essential in this hypothetical scenario. So keep that in mind. Now the last topic, unless you guys have any other questions, isn't it stated that S-rank shinobi can wipe out a whole army by themselves? I'm sure. I mean, S-rank shinobis are the epitome of a shinobi. So that makes sense. But last topic before I get into the future format of this podcast, the three Sannin versus Hidan, Kakazu, Sasori, and Deidara. This is a good question. It's a good question. But eyeball kind of just going based off the dome here because I looked at it very briefly. I would simply say Orochimaru would use Edo Tensei, and that's it. If it's Warwick or Orochimaru, come on, it's over. The Hokage come out, and it's over. Or whoever else he wants to summon, whoever else he wants to reawaken, and then at that point they're fucked. Right, they're out of their depth. But if we remove that, this is a very contentious one. There's a lot of factors to take into account. I would say that hacks would make the difference for the Akatsuki because these particular Akatsuki members have some hacks. Hidan, one cut, you're done. Kakazu, 5 hearts. Sasori, poison. Deidara, clay bombs, and if you has to, C0. Right? So It's very contentious. Now, looking at the other side, Orochimaru is a problem. He's very slippery opponent. Um, I would say, is he superior to any, like, one-on-one? Is he superior? That's tough to say, because I get the impression when Sasori talks about Orochimaru, he seems to look at him with respect, but he doesn't like him. Like, if he feared him, he wouldn't say some of the things he said, right? Like, he had this disdain for Orochimaru, if you guys remember, in Shippuden. That kind of implies that he sees him as someone he could deal with. That's headcanon, but based off his dialogue, based off his kind of demeanor when concerning Orochimaru, it kind of seems that he believes he could deal with him if he had to. You take that as you want it, but that's what it seems like. So I tend to believe Sasori and Orochimaru are relative. That's headcanon, but it's based off what he said. That's possible. Kakazu would be a problem with the five hearts. Now, there's just so many factors here, but I tend to lean towards, based off my current assessment, tends to lead towards the Akatsuki a little bit, just due to hacks. If you remove the Edo Tensei, if you put that into account, obviously they're fucked, because then Hokage would be there, whoever Orochimaru chooses to summon, and be over. So, yeah, that's my kind of spitball assessment, just kind of off the dome. But is there any questions left you might have? Because I'm going to discuss the final topic, which is the podcast, which I definitely need to address. Any questions, folks? Let me know before I move on. I'll wait a little bit. Let's read the chat real quick. Honestly, data might be a problem. He most definitely would be a problem. Most definitely would be. Datara is long distance. Podcast, huh? Yes. So, I assume there's no more questions. If there is, I'll stop and talk about it. But let's talk about, would you consider doing content on My Hero Academia if you watch it? Yeah, I'm very open to all kinds of animes. Just these days, things are busy, but yes, like I'm still on my Bleach journey, trying to go through the dull moments. Unfortunately, some of the moments are dull in Bleach, but trying to continue treading onward to get to the entertaining parts. But yeah, My Hero Academia, I've heard some pretty cool things about it, so definitely want to check it out. I want to catch up on Attack on Titan, maybe give my takes on that if some of you guys are fans of that. If Naruto was the person to show up at the 5 Kage Summit, do you think he'd be more of a problem than Sasuke? Interesting. Well, he has Sage Mode, right? I think the thing that would make him much more of a problem is probably the Nine Tails. That'd probably make him very problematic. But him in Sage Mode, I would say, would he be as successful against the Raikage? That's a good question. It's a very good question. It's kind of hard to quantify. I would say he would be a problem for the Raikage. But then again, the Nine Tails would come out even in the event that he was defeated, right? The Nine Tails would come out, and then they have a real problem. A real problem. A problem that Pain couldn't even deal with. So I tend to believe he would be a huge problem for the 5 Kage Summit, for the Kage at the 5 Kage Summit. Compared to Sasuke, he might be even a bigger problem. I think so. Yeah, I agree. If he has Ma and Pa and all the big toads, especially then, he'd be a massive problem. Yeah. All right, so no other questions? Moving on to the podcast format. Let's discuss this. So, the last one is very hectic. He loses to the 5 Kage, and if the Nine Tails come out, they might have minutes to suppress it again. That's fair. It's a fair assessment. But the last podcast was very hectic. It was very entertaining. I know to some of y'all, it's very entertaining, but at the end of the day, there needs to be order because I want it to be a well done, a well done thing. So I definitely plan on maybe imposing some guidelines. I want to give people a chance to give their points of views, but there has to be order. There has to be order. I'm definitely planning on how to enact those guidelines. Yeah, appreciate it. Appreciate it, 23. But what I plan on doing right now, as of this moment, is to have the topics, have me give my take, not being interrupted. That was last time, which was very annoying. Give my take, let the Hokages give their takes, and then allow the rest to give their takes. And no, I'm not fucking debating people mid podcast. I'll just say fair enough. Unless it's a stupid ass take, then I'll say something. If it's fucking stupid, and I'll be like, no, dude, no. And I still won't debate you. I'll just move on. Who knows? Maybe once in a while I will, like a short little discussion. There's nothing wrong with that, but there has to be order because then we tend to steer off the discussions that are going to be had. The only thing I can think of is limiting the people who can join. That's a good suggestion. It's a very good suggestion. Unlike certain people on Discord. Yeah. You could discuss, at the end of the day, disrespect, definitely not tolerated at all. Zero toleration. And I'll have to punish you accordingly for it. So I gotta instill order. But that's a good suggestion code. Maybe I'll do that. Possibly. I believe there is a feature that allows people to listen in but not speak. Or again, I could limit some roles and not others. But yeah, that's a good suggestion. I'm probably going to look into those various aspects. But there has to be order, As far as how the podcast is run, definitely want to hear you guys' suggestions if you like the current way it goes, the current way it's structured. Maybe I could structure it a different way. Maybe I could do live podcast debates. You could start banning people getting out of line. Yeah, the thing is with me personally, I don't want to be tyrannical because I know some Discord servers were some very tyrannical leaders, and I'm all for public discourse. So banning for me, you have to get very, very out of line. Very out of line. I've only banned like one or two people ever on the Discord, ever, because I had to. Or if it's like a virus spamming asshole, of course, I'll ban them as well. Would rather just not let it even get to that point. Yeah. Order definitely has to be established. I definitely want there to be tension. There has to be tension. There has to be drama to some extent. Not disrespect, especially not towards me, because I have to check you if that's the case. I definitely have to punish you accordingly. But me, Deku. What's going on, Deku? I know you're one of the more established debaters. Yeah, I know who are the best discussers or debaters. Maybe the roles is the way to go. The roles is the way to go for the podcast. Allow the best to have their say, and they're usually more composed than the newer people. The most toxic debate that is going on is Madara versus Aizen. I had my fair share of toxicity. Honestly, I think season wins by narrative and his feats. Yeah, no, that's a highly discussed one. I'll definitely dip my toe in the water when I get more knowledge on Aizen. I definitely don't want to discuss it now because I am ignorant on Aizen, admittedly. Also, it would be cool if you could spectate or some debates with other people. Yeah, I definitely want to watch more debates. I know there's more debaters out there. Yeah, it seems like you got a lot of people from Noodles Discord after your reaction video. Oh, Noodles. What an interesting fella. I would say I'm still on the fence about debating that guy personally. Unfortunately, his reputation precedes him. It's very unfortunate. But then again, you know, consequences have baggage. So I know the actions of the past are always going to follow him, right? So that's why I'm very skeptical on whether to ever engage with him or not. Definitely want to engage with people I can now, maybe 6. Um, I know some other guys in there that are quite formidable in his Discord. I know a few guys' names. Um, definitely watching more debate people on in the community. Come to know some. I've seen tier lists of debate of what people think of these debaters, and just honing my own skills to improve. But I could say this: I understand why Seth left. It's a very, very tough world, and he's already established his legacy as one of the greatest to ever do it. Um, it's a very stressful world. Debating is an art. It's definitely an art form that has to be delicately approached, right? You definitely don't want to be clowned for your lack of debating skills. What are your thoughts on the tournament going on in the Discord right now? I think it's a great idea. It's a very great idea, and it definitely establishes a hierarchical structure as far as debaters. It's very important. People out here doxing because they lost a debate. Yeah, I will never get to that point or allow someone to get to that point with me. That is way too far. Way too far. And people that do that are honestly bitches. Anyone that does that is a bitch. I'm sorry. That's what it is. Doxing and getting personal. It's not worth it. Just take your L. If you lose, you take an L. You move on to the next. And I'm someone with with my own ego, but I would never go to that extent. Never. To the extent of doxing and or trying to sabotage a man's life because I took an L. That will never take place. Debating, you should have fun, right? You definitely should have fun. It's you live and you learn. You live and you learn. You just keep training in your rhetoric. Rhetoric is important. Knowledge, of course, is important, but so is rhetoric, because there's times that rhetoric will triumph. Someone has more knowledge. So, as far as the podcast, going back to that, there's definitely going to be order now. It will be order, and it's going to be much more well managed, right? So, their drama was very exciting in the last one, that's for sure. People seem to very, very, enjoy it. They very, very enjoyed it. So, who knows? Maybe once in a while, I'll let the animals out of the cage, but for the most part, I'm going to keep order, and continue to build the community. I wanted to make a community that it's a very real one. It's a very sophisticated one that has some great debaters, one that allows public discourse, one that you don't have to worry about personal attacks. It's definitely important. Make it more organized. Yeah, definitely do. I definitely got to discuss with the other Kages what's the best course of action. Because the community is growing. The Discord has grown. And I'm definitely going to other Discords, trying to promote our community and keep it organized, keep it well done. And the best gain the glory. That's basically the way it should be. It's a meritocracy. Most definitely. It's a meritocracy. Egos will be involved inevitably, but at the end of the day, it's a meritocracy. The best man wins. That's the sport. Community is actually pretty great. Can't get that in other places, I think. I agree. I've been in many Discords, and it's very unfortunate. It's very hostile. There's people that revere their own positions, over revere, and overvalue themselves. based off their position within the community. I think there has to be equal opportunity. There has to be room for new people to take the throne if they're good at it, if they're good at debating. But yeah, on my side of the tube, I definitely want to keep order, but also make it a real debate community. Like it's real. It's as real as it gets. It's as real as it gets. The best man wins. The guy that can put his foot forward the best comes out on top, right? And even I continue to hone my skills to become a force. It feels good. It feels good to become a force of nature. But yeah. So there will definitely be order. And if you guys have any suggestions on how it should be ran, like should I continue with just breaking down topics one by one, things like that, then of course let me know. But yeah, maybe if you guys have any questions, I'll stay for a couple more minutes, talk to you guys for a little more. If you guys have any questions, anime topics, podcast questions, whatever, stay a couple more minutes. But yeah. Are you well versed in other verses besides Naruto? I would say, as of now, where my mind's at, I'm well versed enough in Dragon Ball, I'd say. Am I as versed in it as Naruto? No, definitely not. But pretty versed in it, especially with prep time. Naruto, probably where I take the cake as far as the most knowledge. Bleach, very little. I'm getting into Bleach as time goes on. Death Note, very versed. Death Note's not a fighting-based anime, so the power scaling assessments are somewhat obscure in that one. That one's more philosophical and rhetorical. But I love the Death Note world. What other worlds? I need to dwell into more of them. Definitely plan on watching Demon Slayer soon. I want to watch one with My Hero Academia as well. I need to get into that. And Yu-Gi-Oh seems like quite the popular anime, so maybe I'll release my inner child and start watching it again. But yeah, definitely want to become more well-rounded, for sure. Fairy Tail, not familiar with that one, but yeah, it's the debating world is something. Definitely a world that I definitely want to keep a balance between the debate world and the more calm world. Like Seth approached it the right way. He's retired, but he always kept that side of him separate from like his YouTube side. I want to work on that as time goes on as well, because some people just don't like conflict. They don't like it. It steers them away. Don't force yourself just for the sake of others. Yeah, good point. I'd rather you enjoy yourself. That's definitely important. But I kind of take a piece of Seth's book when he talks about being seemingly more like a nice person, because the debate world is a cruel world. It's a very cruel world. And he realized that with all the experience he had. And he separated that from his YouTube personality. I definitely want to work on that myself, to seem more like someone that you can come into this world, right, with more, it seems like with more open arms. You're not as reluctant because there's conflict and disagreement. I need to balance that as well. So that's another reason to structure the podcast. I know it'll turn some people off when they see conflict and disagreement and toxicity. It turns them off, and that's the reality. So a lot of people don't like conflict. People like me and Seth love it. We love the battles, the verbal sparring. But some people don't. So I got to balance that as well. I'll definitely keep that in mind when doing the podcast, because it's a podcast. It's not a debate. And once in a while, I'll allow some sprinkles of that here and there. But there has to be more friendly interactions, I should say. Yeah, I'll leave the debates for the debates, the podcast as a podcast. Basically, that has to be part of it because it's important. It's very important. That's why I have debates here, podcasts here, balance, separate the two. That's definitely something I'm gonna keep in mind. And yeah, guys, I think that's it. Unless you guys have any other questions, I'll wrap it up here. I had to come on alone. Sometimes it's good to be alone and just speak to the people. Speak to the people directly so they know it's sincere. It's very important. So I'll give you guys like 2 more minutes of any questions. Or I'll wrap it here. What would you think of only Kushina actually living, but Minato still dies? Thinking about that. That's a good question. I would say it would greatly alter Naruto's life for sure. Having a motherly figure in his life. It might even alter his personality because the very traumatic experiences that he experienced as a child is what molded him into the man that we know now. So having a motherly figure, having that nurturing aspect in your life, that's a video I have in mind. That's an interesting video. It's an interesting topic, but his very personality would be altered. He would be more nurtured. He honestly probably wouldn't have the tenacity that he has now. The very grind that he experienced is what built his tenacity. So it's a good question, but all right, guys. I think this is where I should wrap it up. It's a good podcast. There's more discussion, but I wanted to bring you guys something, and I definitely had to discuss this. I will definitely absorb all this and continue building the guidelines to the future podcast for the best possible product. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. Again, let me know of any suggestions you may have for the podcast. I will consider them all. Especially you guys that have been there for a while. I definitely take them to heart. But yeah, guys, gonna wrap it up. Hope you guys stay safe, stay classy, keep improving. Right, keep grinding, and I'll catch you in the next video, folks. Peace out.